G'day and welcome back to RC Model Reviews. Today another fixed wing review, and what have I got? I've got one of these from FMS. I'll move back a bit because it's too big to fit in the screen. Look at that. Actually no, I don't have one of those. I've got one of those instead. Yes, it's the Extra 300 from FMS, and this one was sent by GearBest, sent for review by GearBest, so thank you GearBest. There'll be a link to the product in the description of this review, so if you want to buy one or find out more about it, you can always go there and have a look. Now, it comes in a big box, as you can see, and like most FMS models, it's really quick to build. I'll give you a demonstration. Hang on. You take the box, you give it a shake, and done. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic? Let me move back a bit because, again, this is quite a big plane. As you can see, it's as big as me. It's here we go. So it is an attractive looking aeroplane, and the build was pretty straightforward, but let's go over some of the things I found. Right, as I mentioned, the model comes really well packed in these large boxes. FMS do a great job of packing the model, and the boxes used for both the Extra 300 and the Edge 540. They just turn the box over and different model appears. Inside they've got some really good stuff. There's all these big bits, there's wings, there's fuselage, there's tails and all sorts of things, and even the little things are quite well bagged in little plastic bags which are easy to find. It's quite a simple job to locate the parts you need to put it together, but there are some downsides. Let's take a look. The battery connector was a crappy, I think it's an EC3, and I know on my FMS Super Easy trainer it was a Dean's connector. Come on FMS, get with the 21st century and put an XT60 on there. That would be so much nicer. Now, I noticed also in the manual that the aileron horn's supposed to have 4 screws per horn, but they only provided 2. Having said that, of course, it doesn't look like it's too much of a problem. The aileron horns haven't fallen off. And also on the subject of the manual, look at this. As we all know, Chinese manuals are often a wonderful source of humour and fun, and this one is no example. This is install the main wing fillet. Take the wing fillet out and do not rashly glue them into place due to their almost the same outline. The fillet, the starboard right and port side left have been factory marked respectively for the handy usage. Google Translate strikes again, but hey, it gets a little bit better if we go down here. I saw some more. What was it? Yes, apply the glue to the fuselage where it mating with the fillet together thoroughly using a blue brush or any other applicator. Why do they need to use a blue brush? Why can't you use a red brush? But mind you, you can use blue or any other. So why even mention blue at all? I don't know. It'd be nice. I've said this so many times. Chinese manufacturers, if you just send me your manuals. Just send them to me. I will read them. I'll proof them. I'll correct them. I won't charge you because this is the kind of stuff that can confuse first-time, kit builders or ARF constructors. It's simple stuff. If you've been flying models and building them for a long time, like I have, you can sort of work out what they're trying to say. But if someone had just bought this and hadn't had a lot of practice and experience in putting these things together, they could be really confused, rush around and spend hours and hours trying to find a blue brush, unaware that it's not even important. Now I noticed that the servo leads were pretty crappy actually. They were a PVC plastic rather than a sort of a flexible plastic, which maybe it's a small thing, but it does tend to make things more likely to fray where they join onto the plug. The wires are more likely to break. And the servos. Let's talk about the servos. This is the worst part of this entire model. Of the 4 servos that came with this model, 2 of them were crappy. One of the aileron servos, so much slop, unbelievable. And the elevator servo just would not centre. Take a look at this.
Right, excuse this handheld camera video. I want to show you what's going on here. I'm going to just move and release the elevator. And see that position? I've got my no hands on the stick. That's a centre position. And so is that. Now it doesn't look like much. That position there to that position there. But that's the sort of deadband of the servo. And that means that you can't get it to fly level with this much throw because one minute it's trying to climb, next minute it's trying to dive when you've got the stick at 0. It's just a crappy servo and not up to the job of having all this movement. The centering is just not good enough. It's just poor.
I ended up replacing that elevator servo with a Savox servo I had here. Not a particularly high spec one, but it was just so much difference.
And here is the elevator response with the Savox servo. As you can see, it always comes back to the same neutral. Just a much, much better servo than the FMS one that they had in there.
Now the propeller setup is a bit odd on the Extra, and you have to build it yourself, basically. They give you the hub and the blades. You've got to bolt them all in. It makes for quite a cumbersome, heavy thing. In fact, to show you, let's look at how heavy it is. Put the bits on here, and you can see it comes to 99 grams. That's a hell of a lot for a propeller this size and spinner. And of course, with a 3D model, you want really fast throttle response. That's going to affect your 3D performance a little bit. But let's compare that to perhaps a normal 3-bladed propeller and spinner, which is 42 grams. So the FMS setup is over twice the weight that you'd expect from a 3-bladed prop and a spinner. Why? And also, obviously, if you break a 3-bladed prop, something like this, it's really cheap and easy to replace. They're cheap as beans. These things, you can only get them from FMS. They're special. You have to buy the blades separately, and I'm sure it wouldn't be as cheap as replacing the entire propeller with a more simple option. Okay, this is quite stiff and strong, and that's good for 3D, but oops, I really question why they want to make such a heavy propeller. Another issue with this build-it-yourself propeller is they use nylox, but the screws are not long enough to engage the nylon, so why bother? You can see with the nylock, the thread of the bolt should actually come through the nut, but it doesn't on these, so those nylox are just, there's no point in having them nylox. Might as well use ordinary nuts, save a little bit of weight. The extra weight of this prop, as I've mentioned, it plays a big role in affecting the 3D performance. It takes so long to spool up and down that it just really, the throttle response just really isn't there, as it should be on a 3D plane. If you're flying on the wing, if you want to fly this like just a sport pattern ship, a sport aerobatic ship, not a problem. But for 3D, nah, it really kind of affects things a little bit too much for my liking. Try and fly nice and smoothly so you can let's trim it a little bit. There you go, getting the trim right. That's trimmed a bit better. There we go, that's all right. Okay, we'll do another takeoff. It's got a good vertical. Pattern response is okay. Let's just try a stall, see how the stall performance is. I'll just slow it down and fill up elevator. That's full up elevator all the way down there, so that's really nothing to grizzle about. But I did notice that it will snap if we give it a lot of speed and yank on a whole lot of up. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, see, it did a corkscrew there, so like most tapered winged aircraft, it will snap or drop a wing if you really push it. So I'll just do a couple of flybys. Still playing with the trim. It's quite good low speed characteristics. Feels comfortable flying it around at relatively low, but I am porpoising a bit because of those very high rates and also a little bit of turbulence around at the moment. will do rolling circles better than I can do them. A climbing rolling circle. And I noticed the hovering is in 3D, it's really kind of the heavy weight of that prop makes it a bit, for instance, a hover here. Try and get a hover going, a bit high to do a hover, but more of a knife edge. Full left rudder on, and it's not really pulling it round very well. It's kind of wobbly. Yeah, not that impressed. But mind you, my 3D skills are pretty crap now. I've flown 3D for a while, so let's bring it in. There we go. Pretty slow speed landing. Okay, I'm going to show you now why the mass of that prop and spinner is such a problem. I'm going to rev this up and I'm going to cut the throttle and we'll see how long it takes for the motor to spool down. So if you can get the throttle sticking out at the same time, Roddy, that would be good. That's got to be a good, I don't know, 10 seconds of inertia, which makes it very difficult for 3D manoeuvres when you need those sudden bursts of power and to have the power come off quickly as well. Could put the brake on the motor, but it doesn't come out of the box like that, and you're still not going to get the acceleration. I noticed when I ram the throttle, it takes quite a while to spool up. So yeah, that's just a little bit of a downside. But apart from that, you know, can't grizzle too much about the flying characteristics. Whoa, it does drop a wing if you pull too much G's with a bit of speed on. That's a bit of a worry. Doesn't drop it slowly, but it does drop a wing.
Well, this is some close formation, guys.
Okay, so there it is. That's the Extra 300 from FMS. As I say, quality control issues aside, and if you're not looking for a hardcore 3D plane, then this is going to work pretty well. I was quite happy with flying this around on the wing. It's pretty easy to fly, except it does have a tendency to drop a wing if you do some high G, high elevator maneuvers. But if you're flying normally, it's quite good, and it's very sedate and slow flight. It doesn't drop a wing if you're just stalling it gently, but if you yank on the elevator, then you've got some problems. But there you go. I would say if this is the kind of plane that you like, if this is your bag, then this is going to be a 7 out of 10 plane. Not perfect, definitely some quality control issues with the servos, but once you've got it set up, it flies really nicely. If you want more information, there's a link in the description. Go and click on that. You'll find out more about it. And I thank you for watching. Now it's time for me to get back to the bench. Bye for now. Okay, it's time to see whether this thing flies. Beautiful, beautiful.